Murphy alongside Kevin Hinks. It's now time for our cash tag segment. We're going to stay in the same theme, though, focusing here on big box retail. Joining us in studio is TD Ameritrade Network contributor Jenny Horn, and from LikeFolio.com, the co-founder Andy Swan with us as well. Jenny, do you kind of have the legacy, I guess, players in this space and the Walmarts and the Targets, which is where we're ultimately going to look at for example trades, but we just talked Costco. It's definitely a major player here, and you can't leave out Amazon, even though a little bit more e-commerce focused.
Yes, and I actually think that retail sales is worth noting here because it rose, excluding autos, about 1.8% in August from the month prior, and this was led by this 5.3% gain in these non-store retailers like an Amazon. But one of its other strongest segments were these retail industry groups, which include retail major discount chains, which was led by Costco, Walmart, and Target. So that number came out strong, and what I think is remarkable about that is the fact that this number continues to be strong despite this sort of rising COVID case count. Now, both Target and Walmart have very successfully shown that they can navigate a decelerating economy and also, a pandemic. Both of these companies have fared very well over the last year, given sort of their essentialness to so many consumers, but they've also done such a good job expanding what we sort of call the omni-channel capabilities. Sort of been this buzzword with these big box retailers because Target has done a phenomenal job sort of expanding its fulfillment centers, using its stores, and Walmart has done a great job sort of rebranding itself to be more online focused. Both companies have expanded so much of their delivery with curbside and also same day delivery. And actually, to paint a picture of how much they've expanded, Target's CEO actually said their same day delivery services now make up more than half of their online sales. So they have done a great job sort of bringing in a consumer for that reason because, like I always say, we are living in a time when the consumer is the greediest version of themselves when it comes to last mile delivery they've ever been. People want stuff within the hour and they want it to be, 100% there on time. And I just think it's almost unrealistic the way that consumers really expect this of these companies, but actually they've proven they can do it. So to paint a picture really of Target's strength, their comparable digital sales rose 145% year over year in 2020. And more impressive than that, actually, is management believes they can still grow year over year beyond these pandemic-induced highs. Now, for the second half of this year, they expect high single-digit growth in their comps. And they also just announced a new share buyback program and a 32% dividend hike, which just sort of shows management's faith in this company looking ahead. Walmart, though, on the other hand, is really expanding its Walmart Plus segment, with a Deutsche Bank analyst yesterday actually forecasting that 32 million households now have Walmart Plus. Well, something I thought was really important to note of this report was actually that they found that 86% of people that subscribe to Walmart Plus also use Amazon Prime. So, we often talk about these companies sort of competing with one another, which undoubtedly they do, but I think it sort of shows the lack of loyalty with a consumer, the way that they sort of will just find whatever's cheapest and easiest, and maybe they don't always go to one, they just sort of pick between the three. And our first tweeter today sort of makes that comparison, comparing these three companies, which says, makes sense, since branching out from Amazon last year, I've consistently had better online experiences with Target and Walmart. Better on quality, price, and delivery time. Haven't done the work to understand the other parts of the business, but as a customer, this one doesn't impress me. Now, when they say this one, they're regarding Amazon. But what I think is interesting is I think this is sort of a trend that's emerged from the pandemic, where all of a sudden these brick and mortars, these companies that actually had physical retail presences sort of started to make a comeback to compete with an Amazon. So that's sort of interesting, that shift we've seen over the last year. But our next year just talks about really the high experience people have at a Target, which says Target's order and pickup experience and their iOS app is top notch. It can't be any smoother than that. And I will attest to this because I have ordered on the iOS app from Target, and it is incredible. And I just have to say that, Andy, typically I think that these more high-end stores like a Target does a little bit better than some of these lower-end stores like a Walmart with your happiness. So I'm curious what your data has to say because, delivery is always such an interesting conversation because, again, I feel like the consumer is so demanding.
Yeah, you nailed it. The consumer's never been more demanding than they are right now. And I think, a lot of that was just, who stepped up to the plate during 2020, during lockdowns, during pandemic, and who didn't. And from a consumer happiness standpoint, it's really Target's show here, especially when you're comparing them versus Walmart. A significant consumer happiness advantage of about 13 points over Walmart. right up there with Costco, which could be deemed untouchable because it's a membership type of place, coming close to Amazon and closing that gap. And I think what Target's done has been, extraordinarily significant. They have really transformed the company from what it was to a true omni-channel execution excellence. I mean, they have superior happiness, better in-store traffic, a really successful omni-channel model. They've got the shipped working really well. It's kind of like everything Target's management has touched over the last couple of years has turned to gold. And I know that we've talked here on Fast Market several times over the last couple of years about the importance of last mile delivery, same day delivery, within the hour delivery, and those expectations from the consumer. And it's been Target leading the way in that consumer happiness metric that has told us it would be the one outperforming Walmart. That's certainly played out. Both companies doing well, but Target certainly outperforming Walmart in every aspect and in the market itself. So not something we see changing anytime soon, because Walmart, as much as they've put into this, as much progress as they've made, they've got serious ground to make up when it comes to Target and other rivals.
You know what, Andy, you've torn open the discussion that I just wanted to get into, which is the Walmart identity crisis, right? This company, the more you read about them, the more you love them, because how can a company that sells $141 billion worth of stuff in a quarter, how does that company have such a reputation or happiness comparison that trails all the other firms? And what can they do to make that better? And the follow-up question is, Andy, can all these companies remain intact, or are they all doing well, or is someone eating someone's lunch, or is there anything that jumps on the radar from one either sprinting ahead or falling behind?
Well, they're all doing well. I think that what Walmart can do to improve its brand image, its identity, its consumer happiness is what they're investing in, and that is keeping people out of their stores. It's really the more people go into their stores, the more people dislike Walmart. The more they stay on the app or the delivery side of things, the curbside side of things, the more they like it, because Walmart's got a lot of stuff and you can get it really quickly. So I think Walmart's investing in the right places. They just have these, really, really enormous footprints that are really, really outdated. It would take a monumental effort to totally turn that around. Although I will say, the Walmarts that I go into personally have significantly improved over the last 5 years in terms of the in-store experience. But they've just got a long way to go. This is a company that built itself in one way and has tried several times unsuccessfully to reinvent itself to go to that omni-channel model. It took Walmart several tries where it really feels like Target kind of nailed it on the first attempt. Target maybe waited and got the technology much better than Walmart did, so had a much better rollout. And of course, all these companies really benefit, from what happened last year. And on the losing side of that trade, unfortunately, is a lot of smaller retail, a lot of more regional retail, mom and pop type of stuff that seems to have gotten left in the dust by these big competitors that kind of have it all now.
Okay, so Andy, I have had a little bit of a different experience at Walmart, and I'm talking solely from a grocery perspective, because I consider myself like a grocery connoisseur, because I love grocery shopping, perhaps more than any other kind of shopping, which is saying a lot. So Walmart's grocery experience, not really up to par with, I'd say, the other companies here, but is it hard to make that comparison? Because Costco, I know they obviously have so many different kinds of items, but they're, to me, more of a grocery, pure play. Same with, of course, Amazon's Whole Foods. But then you have Target and Walmart in the mix, which to me, from a grocery standpoint, don't necessarily compete with the other two. So does that have any influence in the happiness? Because you go to a Costco, that store is immaculate. Their grocery section is unbelievable. unbelievable. Same with Whole Foods, honestly. Target and Walmart have a little bit of a disorganization problem, I notice, when it comes to their grocery offerings.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, Walmart's done a pretty good job in grocery. It's been a successful endeavor for them, but it does seem like it's not their core competency, so it can kind of get left off to the side, both literally in terms of where it is in the store and in terms of, the consumer expectation going in. So I do think, there's room to improve in grocery, but it is kind of odd, going into Walmart and seeing, they've got a 60-inch TV over here, and then they've got the fresh broccoli over there, and they've got all these different things under one roof. It seems a little scattered. I'm sure it's difficult for them to manage, but they're doing an okay job of it. I don't really want to trash Walmart too much, because if we weren't comparing them to Target and Costco, just looking at Walmart itself, I think they're doing a really good job, but they just aren't doing as good of a job as their competitors, and especially Target.
Andy, how hard is it to actually compare these companies? I mean, I think you can just take Amazon out of the bunch because they got basically half of their revenue is from a completely different service in their cloud services department. That's really the fastest growing part of the company. But I'm looking just simply how Standard & Poor's has things split up here for sectors. They have Walmart and Costco both in consumer staples, which would kind of give some credence to, hey, you go to Costco to buy some of those, groceries and maybe, some stuff that you just need. But they actually have Target in consumer discretionary alongside Amazon. And so when I look at that, Andy, that's almost saying that, you're going to these stores for different reasons, or they're just misplaced and it's hard to find a good mix for these companies within their sectors.
Yeah, I just don't know where you draw the line on that sector or how you decide to draw it. I'm sure that there's some formulas that they use but from a consumer experience perspective, I think that it's absolutely fair to compare the experience of going to Target, the experience of going to Walmart versus each other, and the experience of not having to go into either store versus each other, because that's how people really shop. It doesn't matter, to me. As LikeFolio, we look at the consumer experience. We're totally focused on that. So what Standard & Poor's or others classify these companies as is almost a non-issue as far as we're concerned.
All right, Andy, last question here as we wrap things up. You talked about the strength of the space as a whole, and we can't discount, of course, they were all essential businesses throughout this time frame, so they were able to get a leg up on some of the other competition. But going forward, if you had to, rank order these companies, assuming you like all of them going forward, could you do it 1 through 4?
Yeah, I could. I think I like Costco the most, and then from there I like Target. And then I probably like Walmart, and then Amazon would be last, because what I think Amazon has, the biggest problem they have is, like you said, they got the servers business, which is fantastic. But from the retail side, companies like Shopify empowering direct-to-consumer models in every brand and every person across the country is a real threat to Amazon, as is Walmart and Target's competence in omni-channel. So that's the order I would put those in going forward.
And just to clarify, this isn't a bearish call on Amazon. This is just a relative outperformance of the other three. But Andy Swan, thanks as always, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com. Really appreciate your insight. Jenny, I think it's tough. I think they're all as Andy and Kevin and yourself have pointed out, doing very, very well. To me, this almost comes down to a scale conversation, because Target, by market cap, is the smallest of the bunch. Walmart is bigger than all of them but Amazon, but as we said, half of Amazon isn't really comparable. So you look at that, and it's harder for Walmart to grow than it is for Target, just simply because of the scale.